South Africans were left agape today when Parliament was plunged into unmitigated chaos following a jaw-dropping exchange between Helen Zille and Julius Malema that no one had anticipated. What started off as a stormy debate on government accountability and corruption turned into one of the most volatile and emotionally charged moments in South African political history. It was supposed to be a standard session of Parliament, but the tension was palpable from the very beginning, as if everyone present could sense that something extraordinary was about to happen. The red-hot Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, Julius Malema, stepped up to the podium and immediately commanded the mood. His voice thundered through the hall, every sentence sharpened by fury and conviction. He launched into an excoriating denunciation not only of the governing African National Congress, ANC, but also of the opposition Democratic Alliance, DA, accusing both parties of betraying the people of South Africa. He used words like a hypocrisy, greed, and corruption, his booming voice echoing through the National Assembly like thunderclaps. Malema's tone was fiery, passionate, and deeply emotive. When he turned his fury toward Helen Zille, he branded her a political opportunist master, a politician who masked self-interest with the veneer of reform and accountability. The Red Berets thundered behind him, their rhythmic pounding on desks creating a cacophony of defiant noise. The atmosphere in the chamber was electric with the kind of intensity that only Malema could generate. Yet amid the uproar, Helen Zille remained seated, unfazed, unruffled, and unyielding. Her piercing blue eyes stayed locked on Malema as he spoke. Calmly, she scribbled notes, her demeanor icy and deliberate, as though waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When the speaker finally granted her permission to speak, the atmosphere shifted instantly. With unshakable composure, Zille rose from her seat. She neither shouted nor dramatized. The room fell into an eerie silence, an unusual and almost sinister hush in a chamber known for its turbulence. Cameras zoomed in and reporters leaned forward, sensing that something historic was unfolding. "You talk of revolution, Julius," she began, her tone steady but biting, "but you've become exactly what you once rebelled against." The words sliced through the room like a knife. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the speaker appeared momentarily stunned. The EFF benches, so loud and defiant moments earlier, fell eerily still. Julius Malema, known for his fearless retorts and commanding presence, froze. His smirk vanished, and the fire in his eyes dimmed. Across the floor, DA members exchanged looks of disbelief. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something historic. Then came the uproar. The chamber erupted into shouting, jeering, and applause. Some MPs demanded that Zille retract her words, others praised her courage. The speaker's repeated calls for order went unheard, but it no longer mattered, the damage was done. The silence that followed Zille's words spoke louder than any speech could. Julius Malema, the man who had often declared he would never be silenced, found himself momentarily speechless. Within minutes, footage of the exchange went viral across social media. Twitter, now X, Facebook, and TikTok blazed with clips of the confrontation. Hashtags like #Zille silences Malema, #Parliament breakdown, and #sentence that shook the nation trended across the country. The moment was replayed endlessly on television and dissected frame by political analysts, journalists, and ordinary citizens. Political commentators hailed Zille's response as a masterclass in restraint, timing, and precision. Her calm, deliberate tone contrasted so sharply with Malema's theatrics that it only magnified the impact of her words. Even some of her longtime critics admitted that her single-sentence retort was devastatingly effective. "It was the kind of sentence that ends debates," remarked one political analyst during a live broadcast. Yet not everyone agreed. EFF supporters flooded social media with outrage, accusing Zille of arrogance and deceit. They argued that her remark was not an act of wisdom but a deliberate provocation meant to humiliate their leader. "She didn't win an argument," one user wrote. She played politics. Still, beneath the uproar, many South Africans could not ignore the deeper truth behind her words. Julius Malema, once celebrated as the voice of revolt and the champion of the poor, had long been accused of succumbing to the same political and financial privileges he once condemned. Zille's pointed remark had exposed that contradiction with surgical precision, laying bare the paradox of his political evolution. Political observers quickly labeled the encounter a watershed moment for both leaders. To some, it symbolized a shift in moral authority, a reminder that fiery rhetoric could be disarmed by quiet conviction. To others, it reflected a broader national fatigue with endless political theatrics and a yearning for accountability beyond slogans. Whatever the interpretation, one fact was undeniable: this was no ordinary parliamentary clash. It was a collision of egos, ideologies, and uncomfortable truths. As Parliament descended into pandemonium, Zille calmly gathered her papers and walked out without another word. Cameras followed her exit, her face inscrutable, her silence speaking louder than any speech. Behind her, the chamber remained in chaos. Malema slowly returned to his seat, his expression a mixture of shock and contemplation. Even his closest allies seemed uncertain of how to respond. The once defiant EFF benches were uncharacteristically quiet. That evening, both sides released statements. Zille's office defended her remarks, describing them as a reflection of honesty and courage, qualities South African politics desperately needed. The EFF, however, condemned her words as cheap political theatre designed to deflect from her own party's shortcomings. Malema himself avoided the press, choosing instead to post a brief message on social media emphasizing unity and strength, though he made no direct reference to Zille's remark. Despite attempts to move on, the exchange dominated headlines and public discourse for days. Radio talk shows buzzed with callers debating who had truly won the confrontation. Political analysts dissected every gesture, pause, and glance. Some argued that Malema's silence was a sign of newfound maturity, others saw it as a rare defeat for a man seldom caught off guard. Across the nation, people watched in awe. Beyond Parliament's walls, the face-off sparked a deeper reflection on South Africa's political landscape. Many began questioning whether their leaders still fought for the people, or merely for power. The confrontation between Zille and Malema came to symbolize a larger national struggle, the battle between principle and performance, rhetoric and reality. It forced South Africans to confront the uncomfortable truth of what revolution means when those who call themselves revolutionaries begin to embody the very systems they once opposed. By week's end, the clip of Zille's cutting remark had amassed millions of views online. International media picked up the story, describing it as a rare moment of vulnerability in a nation famed for its fiery political theatre. Even foreign opposition leaders weighed in, praising Zille's composure while acknowledging Malema's fierce, if flawed, passion. Amid all the noise and commentary, one truth stood firm: the exchange had stripped South African politics to its core. It revealed how fragile reputations can be, how swiftly power can shift, and how a single sentence can cut deeper than 1,000 speeches. For once, the loudest voice in the room had been silenced, not by force, but by truth. And as South Africans continued to debate, analyze, and reflect, one thing was clear: this had not been just another day in Parliament. It was a reckoning.